There we go.
Okay.
It being 7:01 PM on Wednesday, November 1st, 2023, we will begin tonight's Select Board meeting. The first item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment? There being none. The next item on the agenda, review of minutes for October 4th, 2023.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes from October 4th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
The next item on the agenda is a common victualler license, public hearing for 102 High Street. Is this going to be tabled, or are we able to act on this tonight?
I think that the board is willing to act on it. You are certainly welcome to do that. This is just a current business that they have a juice bar and the restaurant. They're just separating the two. So the juice bar is going to go to 102, which is the next step, which is this application. And then the restaurant is staying at 130, which is the next application. So that's the same person, same operator, same business. They're just looking to go to two different locations. So that's what they're looking for approval for. Yeah. So.
All right, so then, so we'll continue on with the hearing.
Sure, if the board's willing to do that, I think you can, hold the hearing, and just hold the open for any comment. If none, you can vote and then do the same for the next transfer as well. Yeah.
Perfect, all right, so we'll open the hearing. Is there anyone here for public comment on the victualler license for Presto, 130 High Street to 102 High Street? There being none, we'll close that portion. Is there any questions or comments from the board?
Why is the 382 Water Street listed next to on our like cheat sheet here?
Oh, yeah, that's a typo.
Okay,
Should
no
be-
problem. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, that should, the both of them, the one should be 102, the top one, and the next one should be 130.
130.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
Nope, no problem.
All right, very good. Any other questions or comments? There being none, what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Select Board approve the application for the common victualler license from Marie Sophie's Maxi DBA Presto to move her restaurant business from 130 High Street to 102 High Street in Clinton.
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next item on the agenda is the common victualler license, public hearing for 130 High Street.
And Mr. Chair, just
Sure.
a note to, I get on the application a little confusion, but it's a fusion type restaurant, so it's an all natural fusion restaurant, but the name, the DBA is Ciro, so CIRO.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's same Marie Maxi doing business as Ciro and just moving keeping the restaurant there at 130 and moving the juice bar to 102. So I don't know if technically they would need this license because they're still there, but it doesn't hurt just to approve it, showing that it's now two different businesses. So.
Okay.
Very good. All right, so we will open the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf or in opposition? There being none, we'll close that portion. Are there any questions from the board? There being none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Select Board approve the application for a common victualler license from Mary Sophie's Maxi DBA Ciro to operate a fusion restaurant business at 130 High Street in Clinton.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. All right, the next item on the agenda, a sandwich board sign request for 200 High Street. We received a request from Simply Dental Management for a permit to place an A-frame sandwich board outside their business 1 day per week. Zoning bylaws, regulations require approval from the Select Board. Within the informational packet, they provided a design for the sign. And what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, just to
Sure.
note, recently the zoning bylaw changed. They used to be prohibited, but then they were so kind of widespread, the planning board changed it to allow with permission of the select board. And this is the first company that has come forward to get permission. So we applaud them for following the process and we thank them. They're only looking to do 1 day a week at that location. So they're just the day that because they are going to be kind of sporadic, that the day they're there, they just want to put a small sign out front, just say, we're open today, come on in, or book your appointment, or that type of thing. So, yeah, so it shouldn't be any issue with the sidewalk or any intrusive requests, so.
Excellent.
Just, Mr. Chairman, I just have a question, Michael. They were full-time at one point, correct?
I'm not sure, yeah.
So they were only one day a week now?
Yeah, they're just gonna be 1 day a week, so I don't know if it's a new company or if the company that was there is now moving to other locations, that I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that, so.
Very good. Any other questions? What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, actually, I do have one question. So this permit is only for 1 day a week? So if they wanted to, or would they be allowed to place it there more than 1 day a week with this?
Sure, if you don't put that stipulation, I think they were only saying they would only be using it that day, but if you leave it open and don't put that constraint, then it would be allowable for whenever they needed it.
All right, well, if they're just asking for 1 day, I guess we'll just give them the 1 day.
Give them the what?
The 1 day, if that's all they're asking for.
Right.
So the zoning bylaws, it's not stipulated 1 day.
It just says
Just
approval
needs
by the
approval.
select board, so I think the select board can put conditions on it if you so choose. Yep.
You know, my only counter that would be is if they opened it 2 days, then they're gonna have to come back and,
Okay. I'll just do it for the whole.
Business, so, yeah, operation.
when they're open, we could
Yeah.
say like, when they're open.
Yeah.
So then that way, it
Yeah.
doesn't leave
There.
a sign being there for 7
Yeah.
days, 6 days.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that the select board approve the request from Simply Dental Management for a permit to place an A-frame sandwich board outside their business.
During operation.
Do you want to add the part where you're just?
During
talking-
operation.
During their
During operation hours.
second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. If there are any other sandwich boards out there that have not been approved by the select board, we would appreciate your cooperation. Next item on the agenda, Gregory Barros, Fuller Field Vintage Baseball Invitational. If you want to come up to the table and you can introduce yourself, you'll have to do so when you're sitting at the table because of the sensitivity of the microphone, so they can,
Okay.
otherwise they won't hear you.
Sure. Top of the evening to you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Top of the evening to you as well. I'm Gregory Barrows. I'm with Acme Productions Corporation, and I'm going to talk about a diamond mine right here in Clinton. Speaking of which, I have in mind an initiative regarding that diamond mine that has to do with return of vintage baseball on an annual basis to Fuller Field, the world's oldest continuously operated baseball park. Part of that process would involve exhibition games to begin with, and that has to do with the Fuller Field Vintage Baseball Invitational scheduled for next August 26th, Sunday, August the 26th, in 2024. The reason I'm visiting with you and to confer with you is to apprise you of the progress that I'm making in realizing that objective. First, I want to talk about what it's all about, and that has to do with another of my objectives in my initiative, and that is to secure the registration of Fuller Field in the National Register of Historic Places. Of course, I believe that Fuller Field is an unheralded and underutilized, I shouldn't say underutilized, but I would say not fully exploited capital asset for our community. And this would provide our community with a bunch of benefits. First one I want to mention is revenue. Clearly, usage fees, particularly if there are more than one exhibitions during a year, exhibitions being demonstrations, illustrations, questions and answers, that kind of thing. They're on field, by the way, but those are not necessarily league-type activities. So there wouldn't be any competitive exhibitions part of that unless they were meant to demonstrate the rules that the various teams follow, because not all teams follow the same rules, as well as answer the spectators' questions. And there may even be some reenactment aspects of it as well. But mainly, the result would be a tourist attraction. And so that means revenue enhancement as well, besides usage fees, talking about licensing fees, royalties on intellectual property that the town may own regarding Fuller Field, as well as indirect revenue benefits for those businesses offering ancillary services for the tourists and whomever else would be visiting with us during those times. What I want to speak about specifically this evening is what I'm working on to plan and promote this activity. First of all, I've created a special interest group called Crankcase. And for those of you who don't know, aficionados of vintage baseball, fans are called cranks. Players are called ballists. So that crankcase, you guys, not you guys, all of you probably are familiar with a crankcase in a car. So a little play on words kind of thing to do, but also the action of the crankcase keeps the engine running smoothly. And as well, I have the assistance, and I want to call this out especially too, but I've been conferring with Terry Ngano at the Historical Society, as well as Brian Sheehy with the, let me think now, Brian Sheehy is with the Essex Baseball Association. They are involved with vintage baseball all year round in terms of the kinds of activities they have, but particularly during the baseball season as well. And Jake Newcomb, he is with the Dirigo Baseball Association. They're up in Augusta, Maine. However, they have expressed interest in participating partially because they participated as well back in 2006 when the last time we had vintage baseball here in Clinton, and that was called the New England All-Star Vintage Baseball Exhibition. There were 12 teams there, and that made it an exhibition there. There's a qualification here. This is only an invitational because it'll be 6 or fewer teams, probably 4 teams, just to get started. But we'll get the ball rolling. And during this time, as well, I'll be doing whatever I can to promote this activity. And beginning in January, I'm planning indoor activities at Fuller Field as well to prime the pump also, get people involved and get people coming out. The other thing I want to mention I think is critically important, and I'll be speaking to the school committee next week, is that there could be an opportunity. Now, I didn't mention yet another benefit, and I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself there too. There are opportunity benefits, opportunities for entrepreneurs, opportunities for students, particularly students K through 12, in terms of a law that I only recently discovered. It's called number 296 from the Massachusetts General Court, having to do with civic engagement. So we may be able to collaborate with the school committee, and I'm hoping to be able to do so that we can create opportunities for students of all ages, as well as scholars, entrepreneurs, artists, performance artists, commercial artists, writers, photographers, journalists. Anybody who wants to be involved can be involved. I think that hits that checkbox that we now have there for diversity and equity and inclusion. Everybody is welcome. And why not? All you got to do, just like baseball, the equalizer, all you got to do is be able to play and want to play. And that is my objective, and that's the reason why I'm here. And I think I might have a couple of minutes. I promised I'd be done in 7 minutes. I think I've approximated that, but I can answer your questions with some limited time. But I don't want to keep you because the fun is in the anticipation as well. I will answer your questions. Do you have any? Otherwise, I'll get out of here and you get back to business.
Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely.
So have you been working with the Parks and Rec Committee?
I have. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mention that. I have. I've spoken. I'll be speaking with them on, again, I've been apprising them of my progress, and I'll be speaking with them on the 8th. I don't attend all of their meetings, but I bring them up to date when I have news. I did apply for a grant. Terry Ngano suggested that I apply for a grant from our community's cultural council as well, but I haven't heard yet on that, by the way. But largely, this is be privately financed, and I'll be looking for assistance from both our chambers as well as those businesses within our confines, boundaries rather, that are not members of the chambers as well, because they may want to contribute, they may want to sponsor. So it's open to everybody, everybody is welcome, and I do want to mention that in vintage baseball, I didn't describe, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, it is baseball as we experienced it between the years 1850 and 1910. I do want to point out there too, again, baseball being the equalizer, you're probably familiar with the gentleman's agreement, which was in operation because this is private enterprise. It was in operation from 1887 to 1947, and that meant that no phenotypically black person would be awarded a contract in Major League Baseball. Now, why did that end? Not because the government brought it to an end, but because the Brooklyn Dodgers understood that they could make a whole lot of money, a whole lot more money than they were making, if they included black players as well. And by the way, those players, having endured a hardship of 60 years, didn't get 4 strikes. They only got 3. They had to play by the rules like everybody else. Any more questions that I can answer? I don't want to give a history lesson either, by the way. There's plenty. All of these kinds of things will come out. I believe in teaching history unfiltered. The facts remain no matter how we interpret them.
So just to recap, you're from the Acme Production Company. You have a event scheduled on August 26, 2024.
Yes.
That you're working in coordination with the Parks and Recreation Department.
That is correct. And the Fuller Field Commission.
And the Fuller Field Commission
Yes.
too. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
So we have a public access cable channel.
Oh, yes, as a matter of fact.
I mean, our director's done a great job last couple of years, but we are looking to kind of expand. We're always looking for more content. Would this type of event be something that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I've spoken with Mark as well, and he and I will be working on a commercial, too, by the way, as well as a documentary about Fuller Field.
Oh, great.
Great.
Okay. No, that'll be
All
fun.
of those are in the offing, and yeah, I appreciate your anticipation. You will reward us with your goodwill. I appreciate as well.
The last question I just had is depending on the turnout, is the plan just to have people kind of standing on the outside, or are we thinking about having like temporary bleachers or something around at the?
Well, generally at these kinds of events, people bring lawn chairs.
Okay.
They
Fair
lounge and kind of hang around, that kind of thing they do.
Yeah.
And we also are anticipating charging 10 cents a ticket, kind of like the prices were at the turn of the last century. So that makes it doable, I think, for most of us.
Okay.
I think this is phenomenal,
Yes.
and I appreciate your energy, enthusiasm, and undertaking this.
You're
and,
welcome. Thank you.
But this is something that I'm super excited about. Fuller Field is a place near and dear to me, and I just have to ask, what brought you to do this? Like, what was?
I'm glad you asked. It was an event that actually occurred last year in April. Somewhat of I won't say a downer, but it was a funerary event that I was attending for my late sister-in-law. A bunch of us superannuated guys are sitting around trying to remember the 1969 Mets lineup. Now, what happened was we're all sitting around looking like we're constipated, trying to figure out remember who was on third base. And my brother-in-law jumped up because he figured that he had it. And what does he say? Ray Charles. Ray Charles on the hot corner. However, it brought the house down. We all immediately understood he meant Eddie Charles. But that brought the house down. I'm thinking, wow, my sister-in-law, may she rest in peace, has endowed me with something to think about. Now, the next event occurred, I was on my way back from a Worcester Red Sox game, and I just drove past Fuller Field on my way home. I live in Ridgefield. And I said, oh, boy. It reminded me of Russell Conwell and the Acres of Diamonds, as to play on words. Wow, Fuller Field, they're looking, and hardly anybody knows. Everybody I mentioned, it took a few people know that it's the world's oldest continuously operated baseball park. I said, wow, something's going on here, something's happening. This confluence of events is significant here. And I think that was the final, yes, that was the final deal. I decided, wow, this is my magnum opus. I've been preparing all my life to do this kind of thing.
It's like Field of Dreams.
Yeah, exactly.
Very much like that. Well, interestingly enough, just another part of that anecdote is it caused me to recall 1968. And I don't know why, but that was, on part of it was the last year I played baseball. And I grew up in New York City and in Brooklyn and Queens, and I played CYO, Catholic Youth Organization baseball, but I didn't play after 1968. And I said, wow, here's an opportunity for me to remain involved in baseball.
That's excellent. Awesome.
Sounds
Fair.
amazing.
Well, I
I'm
would-
done unless you have any more questions,
Yeah.
and I need not take up any more of your time.
I would agree with you 100%, though, that that field has been for years underutilized.
Yeah.
And you're right, and no one really knows the history of that.
A lot of people here in town don't even know.
Right, absolutely.
And everybody I mentioned to outside of town, it's news to them too, by the way, and they're looking forward to having a fun opportunity. And we're talking about family entertainment too, by the way, family entertainment.
Oh, I think it sounds
One and all.
exciting.
Yeah.
A good deal. Why not?
Yeah,
Right.
right,
And the
absolutely.
last time it was done here, it wasn't done in perpetuity. It was just a single event back in 2006. It was one of the hottest days of the year, as I recall. But it was still a whole lot of fun too, and people can see and they can experience baseball as we experienced it better than 150 years ago too, by the way. Culturally as well, because when we do reenactments as part of exhibitions, is people who are actors, by the way. This is why I mentioned opportunities for actors as well, to participate using the cultural norms that were appropriate during that time. And I do want to add too that women played vintage baseball. That's right, women did. And more on that in some of our indoor activities between January and August. I'll leave you wanting.
Excellent.
yeah.
Greatly appreciated.
So indoor at the Parks and Rec?
Indoor at Parks and Recreation,
Gotcha.
things having to do with baseball, principally baseball.
Sure.
I do want to mention my special interest group, the Crank Case, interested in two points of interest: vintage baseball and my Fuller Field initiative. Crank Case. I started it up, but it's more in theory right now, but I'll be getting to that as well. It's a lot to do, as you've probably concluded already.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you for
you.
coming
For
in.
update.
You're welcome, thank you.
Greatly appreciate it. We'll look forward to hearing from you.
Yes, I'll keep you apprised, I'll be back, sure.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much.
Next item would be the American Rescue Plan Act recommendations. Because Mr. Kerrigan is not here this evening, we will table that discussion until our next meeting. The next item on the agenda is the Town Administrator Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of items just to share with the board. First off, the Mass Development has awarded the Town of Clinton a grant in the amount of $250,000 to be used towards environmental cleanup at 172 Sterling Street. This isn't going to be enough money to do the whole project, so the Director of Community and Economic Development is also applying for federal funds to supplement this grant to hopefully have enough to complete the cleanup. So I want to try to keep moving forward. I know that Philadelphia has prioritized that for the upcoming year to try to get some activity on that parcel because it's such a gateway coming into town. Secondly, the Superintendent of Public Works search, Community Paradigm, has begun advertising for the position. The vacancy will remain open until filled, but all candidates submitting resumes by November 20th will be guaranteed to receive consideration from the screening committee. And finally, just wanted to note for the public that WRTA is looking for a disabled commuter representative to serve on their advisory board for their one-year terms for 2024. You must be a member of the disabled population and be a rider in their system. So if anyone's interested, certainly they can send a letter to the Selectboard office and then we can forward to this board for recommendation to WRTA. So they do this every year. It's a rotating appointment. So they do send notice. So I just wanted to make note of that to the public. So, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next, administrative business. One-day beer and wine license for Holiday Pops concert. This is for December 2nd, 2023 at Clinton Town Hall Fallon Auditorium. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll move to approve the one-day beer and wine license for the Holiday Pops concert.
I'll second it.
Any discussion or questions? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
The next item on the agenda, under old and new business. So the first item is the Clinton Area Little League building permit waiver. The Clinton Area Little League performed maintenance on the snack shack at Savage Field. Some contractors donated their labor for the roofing work, and request has been made to the building inspector about waiving the building permit fee to assist this community project. So this request was put in from another member on the Little League board. This was not something that I had brought forward. But my understanding is, Mr. Salmon did reach out to me just with, he had a question, which I had helped to answer. But my understanding is that some of the contractors had paid the permit fee initially.
Yeah, I think maybe, because they wanted to move forward with the project, I think they had written out a check.
Okay.
But that Mr. Salmon was holding it to see if the board would want to take up any action to do that. So, especially with the roofing contractor that's donating their labor, then they're costing money, to put forward for a permit fee. So, so we just said, well, Jim Salmon indicated he could not waive fees. It's only to the purview of the board, of the select board. So he asked if I put it forward to the board for review.
Very good, all right. So there was the roofing, there was insulation that was done, which was also, that labor was also donated. And then there was electrical, which that labor was also donated. So I'm gonna recuse myself from any further discussion on that. I just wanted to fill in the gaps. So would I?
Well, Mr. Chairman. Well,
Sure.
there was no vice chairman. Well, I guess Ed would be, Ed's
Yeah, we'll
secretary.
just turn over the meeting to the vice chair.
So I'll turn it over to,
This is the first time ever. This is brutal.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we, because the services are being donated and it's free labor and free installation, that I would say that, I would move that we waive the fees, any fees connected with it.
Yeah, I'll second that. I do have a question, though. Is a town building, so it's on town property?
the
it's
space
a-
is leased
Oh, okay.
from the town. So there's an existing lease agreement between the town and then the Little League for the snack shack.
Okay.
Right.
So the
Yeah.
Parks and Rec Board?
It's overseen by the Parks and Rec for the property, but the building is performing community service as well, too. And I think the permit fee was only $60, so it wasn't a huge an amount. So.
Yeah, gotcha.
So you're recusing, I'm temporarily the chairman, so.
Well, there isn't a second yet, so.
Oh,
I
there's,
just
Julie
seconded it.
seconded.
Oh, you did,
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
that's
Julie.
okay.
okay, all right. All right, is there any more discussion? What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, it's a
All
vote.
those, oh, sorry, see, I did what you used to do, and I used to call you out on it.
I was waiting for it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Now, do I have to, like, recuse or turn it back over to the,
Right.
or I could just keep it?
No,
I don't know, make a motion to step down as chairman? Is that how this works? We don't got Bob here, so we don't have any
I'll
Roberts.
second it.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
All right, very good. All right, so the next item on the agenda, the fiscal year 2025 budget timeline and request forms. The Finance Committee has proposed a timeline for the fiscal year 2025 budget process and would like any input from the Select Board They also reviewed the budget request forms and are asking departments to list any grant funds being used for operations or special projects in the upcoming budget year. So I think it's the same timeline as last year.
Right.
So did everybody have an opportunity to review that, if there's any questions specific to the timeline?
Are we, well, we're talking about the timeline, but I was curious, are we still sticking with the same representatives for when we start getting into the finance committee? Who is it? Is it you and Julie? or-
Julie and I had served
Okay.
last year, yeah.
Okay, just curious.
So I think we can either, we can always discuss that a little further down the
Yeah,
road.
further into the process.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the timeline? Very good. All right, and then the second one would be the budget request forms and unifying it. The only couple of things that I would request consideration on were specific to the job positions. If any newly created positions or any change in current position, like if someone's looking to modify a job description or if they're looking to increase hours, I would request that those just be placed somewhere in their own section, whether it's part of the narrative or whatever the case may be, where it's highlighted.
Okay.
That was one thing that I
Yeah, and the finance committee did speak to as well that they would like to see departments use that narrative section a lot more to try to put in more information and use the standard forms just so everyone's on the same page. If they have additional documentation or spreadsheets or things they want to add, they can add to it, but at least fill out the first 4 or 5 forms that we're asking. But try to spell out what's changing, why you asking for more money. Like the chair indicated, if there's any positions being changed, how much grant money do you have? What are you being used for? What are you looking for equipment? So they really like to see a lot more by the departments, a lot more input by the departments.
Just a question on that. If someone is requesting for either like different hours or a different position or something, doesn't that have to go through the personnel board first?
Well, generally, the personnel board would get notice. So if it's a new position, they would definitely have to review the job description and classify the position. But
Okay.
if the position isn't changing, he steps their grade, only adding hours, it
Yeah.
would be more of a notice to the personnel board. So that we do have the HR had created a position review form or position change form so that they would have to notify the personnel board if there are any changes that are taking place. But that can't happen without funding. So it would come
Right.
before this board and the finance committee. That request for funding would come before those boards and the personnel board would be notified.
So increase in hours being like say if they were part-time, you could increase their hours up to like the limit of part-time? Or are we saying they can increase their hours into full-time without, okay. And and that also doesn't have to go through the personnel board?
No, it would just need the notification to personnel board because
Okay.
personnel board reviews any changes in job description or their place on the grid.
Gotcha.
So if it's going to be on A, B, C, or D on the grid. So
Right.
in terms of whether it's 4 hours, 8 hours, 30 hours, that's all subject to funding. So
Okay.
that would come as a budget request through the boards. So
Okay.
the finance committee, the personnel board, and I suppose they could comment on it, but it's really up to select board and finance to determine whether the need is appropriate to put the additional funding into that position.
Right, okay,
I guess if the funding's not there, then.
right. What's the point?
Moot point, yeah.
The other point that you had made about if there were other forms that departments wanted to include, I'd like to just throw it out there for review where if this is what we send out, can the boards kind of look at it, and if they see something that is missing that they would typically use, then we could kind of consider adding it, because I think, I would really like to try to get away from like any additional forms that departments want to put in there, because I think it opens the door to have kind of a variety where if one department is passing in one format, and then another one is in another format, where here, we should be able to look almost line item by line item and expecting to see the same numbers, the same requests all the way down versus, currently what would be suggested right here. You do these 5 forms and then anything else just include.
I took it more as like supplemental.
Yeah, no, if they have additional documentation to
Yeah.
explain it, they could add. But they should all fill out that initial form so that the information is all there, the same as anyone else. Because some departments may not have additional documentation, or they might only have 1 or 2 pages of the form. So those all should be the same before it gets into, it's just sometimes departments may have used a form from years ago and it's in their computer, so they just keep using that same form. So those are the things that we'd like to see them convert over to this process here.
Agreed. So once this is, are we looking to finalize this tonight, or were you intending on sending it out to any departments for feedback, or what were your thoughts on that?
No, I think initially it's just really when the 2 boards, the Select Board and Finance Committee, are satisfied, then we can start submitting to the departments asking for their budgets, so we give them plenty of time. So there's no reason not to have it back by the end of January. So it doesn't have to be tonight. Next meeting could do as well too, but by the end of the month, we'd like to get them out so that departments have December and January to complete what they need to and do any research or background work that they need. So.
And I don't know if this is, if I'm getting too much into the weeds, or if it would become too tedious, but, it seems like there seems to be this inherent, 2.5% increase on last year's budget in terms of the numbers. So I would ask that, or at least for discussion, is there a way to kind of itemize, whether it's utilities, right? So if they're asking for 2.5% on top of the previous year, could we look to see what they spent, or what the spending was year to date? Whereas, I think if we just kind of start going through and approving 2.5% across the board, then, that's just some documentation to justify versus, if we have to cut budget at some point, to have those numbers would be important.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that kind of feeds in with the Finance Committee was asking any increase, they'd like to have an explanation for any increase. And then maybe ask them if it's helpful if they have historical spending to show why they're at this level and they need to go to that level. So, yep, that's fine.
Mr. Chair, under old and new business, can I just ask the,
Is this different from what we're doing right now?
oh, sorry, you're still on here, sorry, my bad.
So we can revisit this next meeting,
Sure. Yep.
and then if there's anything in between that you want to send Michael or Angela, we could do that. All right, other items for old and new business?
Mr. Chair, just curious, Mike, and if you don't know the answer right now, no big deal, but the ALS consultant, I know we did agree to like a 90-day window. I'm assuming that has been kicked off already. What was the date when it got kicked off, and if I know that, I can just do the math to figure out.
Yeah, I can, I'm not sure right now.
Okay.
I'll find that out for you. Yeah.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other items under old and new business? All right, committee reports. Are there any committee reports?
There was a committee meeting for the public access cable, but my computer was on the fritz and I was unable to listen to it. I think you were as just like a member of the public, so you
Yep.
probably know more about it than I do. But I do know that part of the discussion was regrouping back with the school to kind of take a look at, what we've done the last couple of years and how we've structured things, and just try to kind of optimize that whole kind of relationship that we have with the schools. Because I think what's been coming out of both the public access channel in combination with Greenlight Studios, because they're all kind of like indirectly interconnected. A lot of people are really happy with the content from like the varsity football games and basketball games and things of that nature. But I think we just have to start looking at like a year-to-year budget and trying to get things more consistent and standardized. So that's something that we're going to be reaching out to the schools to set up a meeting to kind of blaze a path forward in that regard.
Very good. Any other committee reports? There being none. Moving on to community announcements. Open space and recreation plan update. The town of Clinton is updating its open space and recreation plan and would like your input. Your voice matters and we want to hear it. Attend our public forum at Town Hall on November 9th, 2023 at 7 p.m. and join the conversation. You can join the conversation by visiting our online community input map to share your comments and concerns. The map allows you to specify areas of concern, areas to preserve, and areas to improve in your community. tinyurl.com/Clinton Community Input is where you can locate this map. So tinyurl.com/Clinton Community Input. Thank you for your valuable input. Also, I'd just like to spotlight the Clinton High School athletics that are now entering the state tournament. The girls soccer team is playing tomorrow, November 2nd, 2 p.m. at Nantucket High School. Sounds like a great reason to call in to work tomorrow. So Thursday, November 2nd, 2 p.m. at Nantucket High School. The ferry schedule is online. Tomorrow is the Clinton High School field hockey game. So they're playing at 5:30 in Clinton at the Veterans Athletic Complex. Back-to-back league champions, congratulations. And football is playing, Clinton High School plays Friday, 7 p.m. at Veterans Complex. They will be playing South Shore Vocational. I know for at least the football, for those people that attend it, you will have to purchase a ticket online through the GoFan. The MIAA they're the ones who are in charge of the gate. So I do not believe that there is any cash in hand that will be accepted. So you can find more information on the Clinton Athletics page through the school website. And lastly, just to say congratulations to a valiant effort for the boys soccer team. They had just missed the tournament. They were seated at 32, and the numbers did not work out for them, but great effort. And then lastly, also taking a minute to recognize a sophomore on the Clinton High School golf team, Thomas Bates. He competed in the individual tournament, and I believe he finished in the top, I think he was in the top 12 over at Kettlebrook. So that was congratulations to Thomas. Is there any other announcements anyone would like to make? There being none, so we will be meeting again in 2 weeks. Is that the 15th, 14th?
15.
15th. We'll be meeting on Wednesday, November 15th at 7 PM, and we will also be meeting one more time in November on the 29th. Is that the date? November 29th?
That'll be the tax classification hearing will be held on that day, Mr. Chair.
Very good. If there's nothing else further, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
All in favor? Oh, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.